at 9-4. We're now joined by the head coach of the surging Baylor women's basketball team in Nicki Collen. Nicki, when things started off slowly, and obviously there were a lot of different circumstances, did you ever think you would get back to a point where even with 3 or 4 games left, you would control your own destiny for the championship?
I don't think I ever thought long term. I think it really was at that point about going one game at a time and just continuing to become a better basketball team and controlling what we could control at that point. And so, it's good to be back in that situation for sure. But I think we're trying to approach it with the same attitude that, we can only control the game in front of us and to do our best to do that.
How long did it take the players to adjust to the 7-person rotation that you have? Because usually you kind of get used to 8, and people may not realize how valuable minutes, even if that 8th person is only playing 10 minutes, that it really is in the course of a 40-minute game. But was that part of it now that you guys are kind of in that rhythm of the rotation that you have?
I don't think that players ever want to come out of the game. So, I think that when you look at a lot of box scores around the country in the women's game, you really see a lot of teams only playing 7 players, maybe 8. And so, it's about utilizing them the best. It's about getting into, certainly a rotation where you get rest at the right time for people. But sometimes even with 7, you feel like, you're not getting certain players enough minutes off the bench, even in that scenario. So I wouldn't say it's that. I think there's obviously over time there's more comfort in your role. We've learned to have better balance and I think that's affected our success as much as anything.
Nicki, now that you guys are you've been around for a while now at this point, what's just the personal journey been like of getting to know these young women, being their coach, developing those relationships, and how much ground do you think you've gained since you've arrived?
Wow. It's flown by. It's hard to believe that we have 5 conference games left, before the Big 12 tournament. I certainly think, especially with a small roster that, I was able to establish relationships pretty easily from the beginning. I think they trusted me. I think over time, they see certain things come to fruition. And so then it's easier when you have personal success, when you have collective success, for that message to kind of maybe come through loud and clear. But I've just been grateful for the journey. I closed on a house today. So when I think about, everything that's happened from building a house to, where we're at in the season, I'm just grateful for this time and, kind of this opportunity.
Yeah,
congratulations.
I was told that, and congratulations. What does that mean to you now? That I know I've seen the episodes, I've watched Our Time, I've seen some of those moments when you're reflecting. Obviously, your family has been on the East Coast, and some of them in town. Your husband, I think, in town to help you close in the house. What does that mean to you to kind of put your roots down?
In a lot of ways, it's good to have a reason to come home.
Mm-hmm.
At night. Not that I haven't been in great temporary housing, but just this idea of a space that's your own. As much as I love my job, I oftentimes stay at the office till 10 or 11, and not because I have to, because I can certainly do a lot of the work I do at the office, watching computer at home. And so, for me, it's just feeling like, I am home and, really have a place that the family can comfortably come and visit and want to visit. And, we'll break ground on a pool next week. And so, it's just about that. It's about being able to entertain recruits and entertain families and entertain our team just in general. Like, I'm just kind of looking forward to that as much as anything.
Yeah, it's normalcy. It makes your job a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm also, my plan is to get a dog too. So, then that forces me to come home.
Oh Lord!
What kind of dog do you know? You get a?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna get an Aussie Doodle. So like part Australian Shepherd, part obviously standard poodle. So, you know, I grew up with a lab. My husband and I's first dog was a lab. I absolutely love them. But once you're used to dogs that don't shed, it's hard to go back. So, yeah, that's the direction I'm headed.
Nicki, you obviously, this team has turned, and a lot of it is just time together. Well, not with you, but themselves as well, because of some transfers with Asbury and obviously Jordan Lewis or whatever else. When did you see the light come on? Was it a moment, even during a bad moment, a loss, when a practice? When did you see the light come on?
You know, I think you see different moments throughout the season. I mean, you see moments where you can tell that certain things are going to work. You know, there's certain times, you know, I certainly thought in the Iowa State game that we turned the corner. You know, it took getting over the hump. And I mean, the Kansas game was huge for us just to put that first conference on the board, especially coming off of COVID and you know, but I think it's little things. It's the progress we've made in our zone offense from the first time we played Kansas State to the second time, you know, and even against TCU on Wednesday night, how at times we just kind of rifled through their zone when early in the season, when teams played a zone, we struggled. It's very easy for me to get Melissa shots against man-to-man. I can move her around. I can screen for her. I can put her in different spots. But against zones, you really got to share the basketball. You got to move. You got to move it. But it's over this last month where you've seen, you know, some games that, you know, 26 assists and 5 turnovers against TCU, or, you know, really how we had great synergy on defense against Iowa State. You know, just we're learning to share the basketball. We're learning to trust one another. We're learning to really move the ball from good to great. And then even when we aren't playing our best, you know, we grind until we get over the hump, you know, and that's what good teams do. Good teams figure out when they don't have their best stuff, how do we still come away with a victory?
You mentioned Alyssa there. Obviously, a lot of hype surrounding her before you even arrived. I mean, she's been, you know, around here for a little while now. There's all this WNBA draft talk as well, and you knew coming in she was going to be a centerpiece for you. But what's it been like working with Alyssa, working on her game, developing that relationship? What's been your experience?
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, I think she's someone who was ready to expand her game, and I know she feels like, so I don't want to say any of this is me, because I know she feels like she came to Baylor with some guard skills and then, you know, was put in a position to just play on the interior, you know, for 3 years. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm the person that developed her game. I think I just kind of opened the door, you know, and gave her the freedom to do some things she maybe hasn't done. And the great part about Melissa is that, you know, she finds a way to get it done, didn't make jump shots against TCU the other night. And so we got her on the block. She worked the block. She worked the high post, put the ball on the floor, you know, got in transition, got some things around the rim. So when her jump shot wasn't going, she still found a way to be really effective and efficient. You know, and I think that's the thing that's been great about her is that in the midst of opening up her game, shooting a few more threes, it's not like she's firing 5 threes a game, but in the midst of, you know, kind of expanding and showing more of her skill set on a consistent basis, her efficiency is as good or better than it was a year ago. And so she's doing a good job of not just taking shots outside of 5 feet, but making them.
Nicki, at the end of the Iowa State game in the press conference afterwards, Queen Egbo and I believe Jordan Lewis were the players. You were in the middle. Was there a time when I think Queen and or Jordan or both, and that's and or, made a comment about how much they love you and how much they appreciate you, where you got a little emotional hearing that from them?
Well, I just know this is a hard job, you know, and, you know, the expectations, you know, I was from the beginning going to do it my way, going to respect the past, but, you know, was hired to coach how I coach. And, you know, and I coach very emotionally. I invest a lot of myself personally. Like, I let people in, you know, I let players in, I let staff in, you know, I let ESPN in. to kind of who I am and what I do. And so, I just know that it's not easy. It's not easy to be in the public eye today. And I knew what I signed up for. I absolutely 100% knew what I signed up for taking this job. At the same time, my goal is to always meet everyone's expectations, and so, when you feel like people look at you as a disappointment or, wish it was somebody else or all of that, you can't help but feel that, So I always said the most important people to me were, certainly what my family thinks, but what our team thinks, what our staff thinks, what the administration thinks. And, I knew I was in the right space with all of them through this process, but, you still, like, as a coach, you put expectations on yourself regardless of what, the exterior expectations are. But you still feel those, you really, really feel those. And so, I think it's just emotional. I mean, we're in this together. We're invested.
So when your family's on the East Coast and you're going through a tough stretch and you hear some of that chatter, is that like an incredibly lonely time? Who did you lean on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you lean on your staff, you lean on your family. I'm still, I'm still a bit of a, I lean on my parents a lot, because, and really, I have, kind of a mentor that I lean on who actually I had to speak to our team. He's written books and stuff like that. And his name is Dwayne Cummings. And he's just kind of my person that keeps it real, with me and reminds me like why I do what I do and who to listen to and who not to listen to. And so sometimes when you hear it from your family, that it's just slightly different than someone who, can also tell me to knock it off, can say who cares what people think, and isn't afraid to be a straight shooter with you. So, everyone needs that person in their life, the people that champion them, the people that'll step up and tell them, the hard truth at times too. And, that's something that he did for me in some of those moments.
Coach, you've now had 13 Big 12 games, sitting tied with Iowa State at the top, 4 teams in the top 15 in the Big 12, and there's 5 teams that are all within 2 games of the lead. Now having had a good amount of experience in conference play, just what have been your impressions of the Big 12 and anything that's been surprising or maybe enlightening having been in the conference now for a little while?
I said this, when I got the job, what I was most excited about in terms of coaching in the Big 12. And, I'll tell you, like, it's the cool part about the Big 12, and if you're a women's basketball fan or a fan of basketball in general, like, there are so many different styles of play. And so preparing for teams, preparing for Iowa State is totally different than preparing for Oklahoma State, which is totally different from, preparing for Texas. And so you have teams, I would put Texas and Oklahoma State and West Virginia in one category because they're high pressure, denial, really play with a defensive mindset, a toughness mindset, and then you have the skilled teams that shoot it and are very scout heavy, and an Iowa State and Oklahoma's that way. They stylistically, obviously they have our number, this year, and I hope we get them a third time. So that we can prove, that we're as good or certainly better than them. But it's the styles. But I think people didn't realize like how good Kansas was. And they're a team that, I think, it was, you went and barely won against them. Well, we were in a different space mentally, and the game is very, very mental, regardless of how talented you are. Sports are very mental. So, us getting over the hump against Kansas, was a big deal for us, but I don't think what people realized at the time was how good they are. And, they run a very pro-style system offensively. They move people around. They have a lot of really good sets. They have a lot of misdirection. Brandon is doing an amazing job with that team. And, it was great at Stephen F. before them, but it just took a little longer to get it going there. And so, I think just the league, the fact that the league is number 2 in the net, that's huge. I mean, this league, I'm not suggesting that there haven't always been good teams in this league or that the league was bad at any point, but this is by far the best the league has been top to bottom. If you look at probably the last 8 or 10 years in terms of, the depth and the number of teams, in the top 15 that are, and the fact that the league's doing the net. I don't know the last time the Big 12 was even like within near any higher than like 4 or 5. So it's kudos to all the coaches in this league for building their programs and scheduling.
Waited till your first year to do it too, Coach. That was very nice of them.
Yeah, just added a little more pressure. As obviously Baylor's dominated the league, and then fan expectation is that's just what Baylor does. And I think, but when have you heard of Kansas being this good, and Oklahoma, and certainly teams have had their runs in this league, but from a consistent perspective, obviously Baylor's been at the top. West Virginia's been really solid, but it's not like Iowa State, is ever not good. But you've seen Texas's up and downs over the years. And so, yeah, the league is good. The league is really good.
You were one of Ashley Hodge's many guest hosts on the post-game call-in show here in studio. You did a great job with that. I think maybe probably the best one he's had.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, your thoughts on the men right now, and they're in the teeth of their schedule as well, and that the Big 12 is unforgiving for everyone.
Yeah, unforgiving. I think that's off to kind of the unneeded start, and again, the expectation coming off the losses that they had in terms of personnel from a year ago. Obviously, Scott and that staff have done a tremendous job, but as much as that, it's just weathering the injuries they've had, whether they were short-term injuries or looking at, depth problems now with losing John for the season. Like, I just think they compete really hard, and they're going to guard you, and James is going to get people shots and be hard to guard. And so, I just think what they've done following up on, losing 4 key players and having all these guys in the NBA, like, this says a lot about, their depth and their coaching and how they're going to be consistent over time, regardless of who comes and who goes. They just have, I just think they expect to be good now, so they're surprised when they don't win. And when you have that mentality, you're always going to be competitive.
Nicki, you have developed a relationship with the students, and that's not always been the case when it comes to the women's basketball program. How much has that kind of like brought something into your heart, that you've seen how they've reacted, but they've also seen how you have reached out to them and said, hey, we need you?
Well, I know part of the deal with women's basketball is it's not always perceived as cool. And, students tend to do things that are cool. They tend to do things that their classmates are doing, and you get some leaders and then you'll get some followers, and then they'll realize that it can be cool to come to a women's basketball game. And so sometimes it's selling it the right way. And, I just know that, as much as I've been in sports, and I don't discount any person, however old they are or young they are, how they can help impact the game. I just know students bring a different energy. They bring a different, just vibe to the building, and, can change the trajectory of a game by being involved. And so it's just been really important to me to reach out to that group that, it's not exactly like, sometimes I think like, hey, if you're in Dallas or you're a school in LA, like, there's a million things that students could be doing. But I feel like when you're in a college town, and I'm not sure Waco's considered a college town, but I feel like it's got some college town vibe. It's not like being in the Metroplex. So, this idea of creating an environment as something that they want to do and something that they want to be a part of was really important to me. So just trying to make them feel a part, trying to make them feel like I care, even if it's coming down to like investing in the t-shirt toss after the game, like, what kid doesn't want $100, So, it is important to me, and it's important that, our student athletes, our players are invested on campus, and they build some of those connections so that there's reasons for some of those students to come to the game outside of a free t-shirt, a free bucket hat, or a potential $100 gift card.
Do you want to see Brittany Griner's jersey retired?
Absolutely.
Is that something you guys are working on behind the scenes?
It is. And I think timing was tough. And admittedly, like, I've been in touch with BG. I've been in touch with BG's agent, who I got to know pretty well through the W. And, it's just a matter of doing it. Things have been, there have been systems in place here. But it will get done. We want to do it the right way and honor her the right way. And because she obviously has an unbelievable legacy here that we're really, really proud of.
Thank you, Nicki. Appreciate it. Go get that dog. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
That's Nicki
All right,
Collen,
great.
Baylor women's basketball head coach. And the last thing she mentioned, Brandon, you put this up on YouTube, I had it down, was whether or not they would ever retire the jersey. There were different systems in place, different rules in place. And so that will be interesting. And also, there's still some give and take. And there was an article by, oh my Lord, Michelle Vopel on ESPN.com back in December. Brittany Griner hopes to erase distance from Baylor, see jersey retired. And with Nicki Collen, she had been in touch on occasion with Coach Mulkey, but that was, as you know, some friction and for reasons on both ends. That's interesting with her answer that she wants to see that jersey, and it will be retired at some point. Sick 'em, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Petty Clinic Low